Hello and welcome to Who Are You? This is the Babylon 5 Watchcast, hosted by two former strangers, now friends, who have gotten to know each other while we watching a favorite show from their childhood, Babylon 5. I'm Xhafer,
And I'm Laura.
and we're here today with our first script reading. We have these two scripts from Crusade. There's three total. These have been floating around the internet for a little while. They're published in the JMS Crusade books from JMS Publishing, which you can totally go check out. And if you are interested in more about Crusade, we highly encourage you to go check out those books, buy them, support art, support artists, and JMS. Please don't sue us.
Please.
Yeah, we love this show dearly. This is just an expression of that.
Mhm.
You wouldn't steal an episode script.
Well done. So Laura and I are joined by a whole mess of people today. So I'm going to ask everyone to go around, introduce themselves, say where they can find you on the internets if you wish to be found, and also what roles you're reading for our first script that we're going to be reading, which is Value Judgements, which was probably about 5 or 6 episodes away from where we were, where the show leaves off. I want to say maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah, I'll start us off. So we were going to maximize the diversity options in these readings. Since there are only two ladies' parts, I will be giving everyone the stage directions and setting the scene.
I'll be reading Captain Matthew Gideon, and then also the rogue psychop that's in this episode.
Hello, I am Benjamin Curley. I am one of the co-hosts over on Last Time On, and you also have seen me here. And I will be Lieutenant Matheson, as well as Thug One.
Hey everyone, I'm Victor Andriago from Last Time On. I will be playing the part of 10th level chaotic evil psychop, Alfred Bester.
Hey guys, I'm Glow. I am the co-host of the forthcoming podcast, Cool Girls Don't Look at Explosions with Beth and Laura, and I will be playing Chambers.
Hi, I'm Beth. I am a co-host of Cool Girls Don't Look at Explosions, where we will be watching dude television and pointing and laughing and mocking with Glow and Laura. So, anyway, look for that. I'll be playing Doreen.
Hello, I'm Ryan Slawinski, and I am one of the hosts of Yum Yum Podcast, a science fiction television review podcast that I host with my wife. And I shall be playing the lovable, handsome character of Max Eilerson. All love hearts for Max.
My name is Austin Harper. I'm not the host of anything, and I will be reading the parts of the Governor, Pilot 2, and Thug 2.
Hey everyone, I'm Ahren. I edit this podcast, and I'll be playing the part of Pilot 1 and the Tribunal Judge voiceover.
All right. Well, with all that said, I know that we're ready to get going, not because we just had to stop 5 pages in because we realized something happened to the recording. That'd be tragic and not really something that happens because we're professionals.
Never.
So with that said, Laura, could you bring us into our episode?
Absolutely. This is Crusade, Value Judgements. Cold open, fade in. Exterior Excalibur, afternoon. We see the Excalibur near a rotating space station similar to the transfer point at Io. A large moon and planet are in the background, the station nearest the moon. Superimposed space dock, Tariffs Colony.
Let me get this straight.
Interior Excalibur Bridge. Gideon is speaking with the governor of Tariffs Colony on screen. Matheson stands behind Gideon.
You want us to pay a bribe so we can come down to the planet?
It's the only way you're going to get down to the moon. Be reasonable, Captain. This is a commercial colony. There has to be something in it for us. Why is this so troubling for you?
It's the principle of the thing. You let IPX and their crew down on the moon for free?
That's different. IPX made special arrangements with us when the relic was discovered by our team of ice miners working on the local moon. EarthGov did not. Our economy functions on bribes, bets, and
extortion.
An unpleasant word. Let's just say we're unconventional.
All right, then. I'll make a bet with you. Over a game of poker. If I win, our officers can accompany IPX on the dig for free. That way we can provide proper supervision, get our medical team down to examine anything that might be a cure for the Drakh plague.
And if you lose?
We'll pay the fee.
I accept. I've never gambled with an officer before. It should be most amusing.
The governor ends the call. Matheson appears behind Gideon.
You'd better win.
It's Friday. I never lose on Fridays.
Exterior moon. A geodesic dome covers a bowl-shaped area cut into the surface. Interior, archaeological site. Stone walls, which curve around bowl-like. Eilerson is working here with a team of 5 IPX scouts. The mining tunnel gives way to an alien doorway. It's very elaborate, and in the center of the door is an obvious locking mechanism. His link breeps.
Yes?
Gideon here. What's your status?
We analyzed the minerals surrounding the vault, and we can't risk blasting our way in. We'd bring the whole place down. We have to find a non-destructive way to open it. We've also made a loose translation of the language surrounding the lock. It makes repeated promises to enrich anyone's life beyond the door.
Meaning what?
Well, I'm basing their language on something that I've seen that's similar, though I can't really make a definitive analysis of the word enrich. It could be figurative or literal. If it literally means to make us rich, we'd better get more than one IPX shuttle down here to carry away the loot. How are the negotiations going?
Interior, Excalibur Bridge.
Lousy. These people definitely have issues with authority figures. They don't like uniforms, officers, or EarthGov. In that order. Keep trying to find out what's on the other side of that door. We'll be down there as soon as we can. Excalibur out.
Interior, archaeological site. Moments later. 2 of the technicians are taking surface scans of the door. Eilerson is checking out a 3rd technician's comp pad report. He hands the comp pad to the technician when there is a huge shockwave effect from the door, and the 2 IPX team members are blasted back, dropping their instruments and collapsing to the floor. The surge sends everyone sprawling for a moment. Then Eilerson gets up.
Miller? Thompson?
The 2 techs look bad, some blood coming from the mouth and nose.
Oh, hell. We've had a major accident. Alert Dr. Chambers, bringing 2 wounded to medbay.
We end on the 2 technicians being hauled away, and Eilerson looks at the door, very concerned. Fade out to theme.
Who are you?
Matthew Gideon, Captain, attached to the Earth Alliance starship Excalibur.
What do you want?
To find a cure to the Drakh plague before it wipes out all life on Earth.
Where are you going?
Anywhere I have to.
Who do you serve, and who do you trust? Who do you serve, and who do you trust?
Act 1. Fade in. Exterior Excalibur, afternoon. An establisher. Interior medbay. Chambers is going over one of the injured IPX techs. Eilerson is here in mid-discussion with her.
This is my primary team. It's like losing both of my hands during a dig. I've got to have them with me. How long will they be out of commission?
They've both suffered from a major stroke, meaning life support. You're lucky they're even alive.
This hits Eilerson pretty hard.
Now that we're past the histrionics, tell me exactly what happened.
Chambers goes over to a monitor with brainwave readouts.
They were conducting preliminary scans on the doors to the inner vault. They weren't reading anything unusual from it when they got hurt.
I'm asking because they've been hit by something like a telepathic mind blast. Ever seen what a high-level telepath can do to a normal person's brain?
I've heard a few stories. Horror stories from the telepath crisis, mostly.
Here, take a look at this. A high-level telepath can twist up a normal's brain like a wet washcloth. With one telepathic burst, they can send someone into a stroke by twisting neural pathways and synapses. It's a nasty way to screw someone up for life. Paralysis and nerve damage can occur. Miller and Thompson may not recover completely from this.
What are you saying? A telepath mind-fragged my assistants?
Matheson enters the room. From his look, he overheard Eilerson stick his foot in his mouth, but says nothing.
You wanted to see me?
Take a look at this for a minute. I've reconstructed a model of the accident based on the condition of each patient's brain. What do you make of it?
It looks like a telepathic attack.
Can you do something like that?
Not at that magnitude. And honestly, I wouldn't want to. That kind of thing can leave irreparable damage.
Chambers and Eilerson exchange a look.
What did this?
I guess that's what we're wondering. It would appear that someone behind the door attacked my teammates.
Are you sure about that?
Since you're a telepath, we were hoping you could tell us more about what happened.
If this is accurate, it didn't leave a psychic imprint, which means a person didn't do it. Which leads me to think it's a defense system of this vault.
Can something like that be possible?
I've heard stories about older races who mastered telepathic activity. They used the energy to set booby traps or lock doors. This may be a telepathic lock, but it's incredibly powerful.
Can you disarm it?
I don't know. I'd have to take a closer look at it.
Thanks, Lieutenant. At least now we have an idea of what we're dealing with.
Of course. I'll get ready to head down. Are they going to be all right?
We'll do the best we can. Lieutenant, I thought no one could go planet side until the captain works out a fair bargain.
That's right. But it's Friday, so I expect we can come down at any time.
Exterior space station, just to establish. Then, interior, dark bar room. The scene, a darkened table with an overhanging lamp. Gideon and Governor are seated across from each other at the table playing poker. Both have excellent poker faces. The silence and tension should be obvious to the audience within a few minutes.
I underestimated you, Captain. Most Earth Force officials are too uptight to play for any odds, let alone such high stakes.
Well, this assumption on your part cost you quite a bit of money.
Gideon puts down his cards. It's a winning hand.
You are one lucky son of a bitch. Almost too lucky. Telepath lucky.
You can check my records if you like.
I'll take your word for it. We don't like telepaths here. There's only one teep in the whole colony. Name's Al, and we keep well away from him. He lives just outside of town. He's dangerous.
Coming from you, I'd consider dangerous a form of high praise.
You're an interesting man, Captain. I thought with a name like Gideon, you'd be a religious sort. Weren't the Gideons responsible for distributing Bibles back in Earth territories?
If I lived up to my name, well, I'd be in every hotel room in Earth space.
Not that women don't mind, certainly.
Gideon takes a moment to digest this comment.
You're free to come and go with your team. We'll stand down. But I'd be careful if I were you. You won a card game against me, but not against the entire colony. If something happens, I'm in no way responsible for it.
Now wait a minute.
Just a warning, Captain.
Interior station hallway. All the sets are modified Babylon 5 walls and dressing, similar space station. Earth built. The door closes on Gideon. Gideon's wrist link chirps.
Yes?
There was an accident at the site. 2 of Eilerson's crew were attacked by a telepathic device. We think it was part of the vault. I want permission to come down and investigate it.
I don't know. Even though we just got permission to come down, this place is pretty hostile.
Then I'll come down in plain clothes.
Hell, in plain clothes, you'd need a 5 o'clock shadow and a few broken teeth before we'd blend in down here. And they really don't like telepaths. Besides, I want to look at this thing myself before anyone else gets hurt.
But, sir...
2 seedy-looking pedestrians walk by Gideon and look suspiciously at him. He's attracting attention.
No, not yet. And I mean that. I'll talk to you later.
Gideon ends the call abruptly and walks away from the 2 pedestrians. Exterior archaeological site. 2 shuttles land near the site. One Gideon's and one is Eilerson's. Interior archaeological site. Gideon enters and looks at the vault. Eilerson walks into frame.
I understand you wanted the rest of the crew to stay on the Excalibur.
Just until I've had a chance to look at how dangerous this thing is, yes. So what's she doing here?
Darina is standing behind them, smug.
How did you...
I'm not going to miss an opportunity to come down to a thieves' den like this. Besides, you need a real expert to look at this lock.
But how did you get down here? You weren't on the shuttle when I left.
Yes, I was. Just because you didn't see me doesn't mean I wasn't there.
I see you're taking after Galen again.
Actually, he's been taking after me. Look, it's easy for a technomage to walk around unseen. He's got half a mile of raw circuitry plugged into his back. He can do a lot of fancy tricks. But I can do a hell of a lot better being invisible than our technomage. And I don't need anything but my wits for that.
As she walks toward the site's entrance.
Besides, I came down to help pick your lock, not to talk shop. So are you coming or what?
They go inside as we pan to a crate of supplies. There's a small hole in one with a lens inside. Interior station slum. Their conversation is being observed on a handheld TV by Thug number 1. He's heard the whole conversation. He moves off screen to tell his buddies what he's heard. Fade out. End of Act 1. Act 2. Fade in. Exterior Excalibur, an establisher. Interior Excalibur Bridge. Matheson and Chambers are here. He checks off a clipboard and hands it to an ensign.
I know it shouldn't bother me, but if whatever's down there is really telepathic, I shouldn't be here on the ship when I know I could be helping.
You know Gideon. He doesn't like anyone wounded on his watch. Those 2 IPX technicians suffered severe damage. He wants to know what we're getting into.
A hands-on captain.
The best kind. Wouldn't you want to see what you were dealing with before sending off someone you care about to do the same thing?
Yes, I would. That's exactly my point. Why doesn't he let me go down and risk it? He's the captain. He isn't expendable. Of course, putting himself in the line of fire is commendable. I just think he's got a death wish some days.
Interior archaeological site. Darina, without touching anything, is examining the exterior of the lock. She then approaches an on-site monitor with a highly detailed schematic showing all the lock's pathways.
It's pretty much what I thought. These are all feints, dead ends. The locking mechanism leads nowhere. It's set up to keep someone preoccupied.
So the person would be a perfect target for an attack. They'd be distracted by the tracing and lock back until they hit an advanced telepathic landmine.
Basically, you've got yourself an auto-defense system here, and it's a killer. I know you don't like the idea, but you'd better get Matheson down here to have a look.
Interior station slum. A few thugs are gathered around. One of them comes into frame and speaks to the others.
I just overheard an interesting conversation. There are Earth Force pigs at the dig outside of town.
Earth Force? Must be something special to draw their attention.
If it's special, it belongs to us, not a bunch of Earthers. Besides, could be valuable.
So how do we get to it?
I got away. Meanwhile, we wait.
There is general agreement. Exterior archaeological site. We pull back from the site to the upper atmosphere of the planet and then the Excalibur. We see a shuttle launch from the Excalibur and head past the station toward the darkening side of the moon. Interior archaeological site. Matheson arrives with Chambers following behind him.
You got down here fast.
I've been ready to go for hours. As we were on approach, I could feel this thing down here from 2 miles off.
Interesting.
Not the adjective I would have chosen. I want to know how dangerous it is without taking any chances that would give my first officer a stroke. Are we clear on that?
Matheson nods to Gideon.
I need you to stick close in case something goes wrong.
I'm ready.
Let's see what's inside this thing.
Matheson concentrates. Closing his eyes, he seems to be doing okay with his mental search. We can see something visual against the door, letting the audience know there's a psychic power there. He begins to make some progress and then is hit by a mind blast. Interior archaeological site. Matheson reels back a bit, but his expression shows he fights most of it off. Chambers and Gideon catch him as he goes down, and Chambers runs a few diagnostics on him with a hand scanner.
He's okay. His EEG readings are high, but no damage.
Chambers pops a smelling salt gadget under Matheson's nose, and he comes to. He sits up.
What a ride.
What happened?
The attack is massive. From my own experience in the Psi Corps, I say it's comparable to a telepath rated P10 or higher.
And you're a P6?
Right. No way I can stand up to that thing. As you probably noticed, we're gonna have to find a P10 or higher to get in there.
The governor said there's a telepath back on the station. Everyone avoids him. All I've got is a first name, Al. With any luck, we might be able to find him.
Well, like or not, money talks. We can pay him to come here and help us out.
No last name?
Not that he mentioned.
Matheson and Chambers trade a look. Gideon exits, and the others follow. Interior station hallway. Along the hallway are rental quarters, similar to Babylon 5's down below. Matheson walks beside Gideon, ahead of the group.
Sir, can I speak freely for a moment?
Of course.
It would be better if you'd let me come planetside more often. I could have helped Eilerson with this vault. Could have prevented the accident with the technicians.
You can't be everywhere at once to protect everyone.
That's an odd statement coming from you. Look, it's just...
John, the Excalibur means more to me than my own life. I am expendable. The mission is not. And the Excalibur is the very symbol of this mission. When I leave her in your hands, I can focus at the task at hand. If I have 100 things to worry about, I know that one of them is safe with you. I know I don't say it enough, but you're my right hand. Excalibur is the one constant in my life right now, and when I'm away from her, I can rest assured that she's going to be all right, no matter how long I'm away or what might happen, as long as she's under your charge. I don't want to jinx that. You understand?
Yes, sir, I do. Thank you.
Interior. Bester's quarters. During this speech, we pan the room, starting on a far end with his mementos. We come to focus on a hearth burning. We slowly realize this is an environmental video of a hearth.
You have been stripped of all rank and commission. You are no longer a member of the Psi Corps. You have undeniably misused your power, and the following charges have been brought against you. You were charged with the innocent slaughter of normal human citizens during your previous employment as a member of the Metapole.
We begin to pan slowly again. There are feet resting on an ottoman nearby in black slippers with the hint of a lap blanket thrown over legs.
How do you plead?
Not guilty.
We have witnesses sworn under oath, interns who served under your command who testified to the acts you committed. They confirm your guilt.
Under torture. Anyone will admit anything about anybody. These are false accusations.
The sound of a crowd can be heard loudly and angrily shouting at the comment and insinuation made. The sound of a judge banging his gavel upon a podium.
You have been accused of crimes of war, committing acts of murder and inhumanity against normal citizens during and before the war, committing blackmail, extortion, use of bodily harm, and the systemic murder of your own people. The Corps does not kill its own telepaths, and yet this court has evidence that you killed anyone who opposed your views.
The crowd is louder. Sounds of cheering on and anger are growing. We pull back to Al Bester, sitting back in his large wing-back Victorian chair. You can't see his face because he is sitting facing the fireplace and his body is enclosed in shadows.
How do you plead?
Despite what is playing in his mind, Bester's entire demeanor is one of peace and serenity. We move in, close to a head and shoulders.
Not guilty.
Shouts are heard. Cries ring out to, "Kill him now!" and "Just shoot him!" The crowd starts to die down, but we hear the voices of the team of the Excalibur. They sound distant, but then they begin to get closer. Intercut this with the team approaching his quarters. Al Bester sits up, realizing these are real voices, real minds coming toward his house. He is still in the shadows.
We'd better hope he's strong enough to get us into the vault.
Interior hallway to quarters.
Maybe we can combine forces. Lieutenant Matheson and he could...
Interior Al Bester's quarters. Closer now. Al throws the blanket off his legs and stands up. Note to wardrobe, he has no gloves on.
It doesn't work that way, Eilerson.
Well, if he's not strong enough to help us, we'll just have to look elsewhere.
But we have to think about the time involved.
Al puts his cup of tea down. He removes his slippers and puts on a nice pair of shoes from a nearby shoe rack. We see only side or back profiles of his face. Nothing definitive as he evades the camera angles for a face-on shot. He stays in his smoking jacket. It's a nice black velvet. In fact, everything he's wearing is black. Interior hallway to quarters. Gideon looks at Chambers.
That's the problem. We're always on a clock, but the faster we get into this vault, the sooner we learn if it holds a cure for the plague.
Interior hallway, Bester's door. Gideon and the crew walk up to the door, and just as he's about to use the chime, the door opens. Bester greets them with a smile.
Hello, Captain Gideon, Dr. Chambers, Tarina Nafil, Mr. Eilerson. And of course, a cordial greeting to you, Lieutenant Matheson. It's been a very long time since we last saw one another.
We close in on Matheson's expression of recognition and alarm.
Alfred Bester?
Gideon turns around quickly, stunned by the admission. Fade out. End of Act 2. Act 3. Fade in. Interior hallway, Bester's door, right where we left off.
Captain, we have to take this man into custody. It's Al Bester, a war criminal, indicted after the telepath crisis.
Crisis? It was a war, not a crisis. I don't know why everyone feels the need to minimize it. Won't you come in? I was just having some tea. I can make some for us all.
Just a minute.
Bester turns and looks back at them.
That's all you're going to say? It was a war, not a crisis? Won't you have some tea?
Yes. And the tea is getting cold.
Bester enters his quarters. Gideon looks to Matheson.
You can't ask that man for help. He's guilty of the slaughter of hundreds of innocent mundanes. He's a notorious criminal. The government's been trying to catch him for years. Each time he's managed to escape before they could get to him.
I happen to like tea.
He steps inside the doorway.
We should at least consider all the possibilities, Lieutenant, before we make any judgments.
Gideon hesitates a moment, then enters. The others follow him hesitantly. Matheson does not go inside. We stay on Matheson, angry at the doorway, wondering what to do. Interior quarters, later. Eilerson and Bester are having a cup of tea in the same small front room, in two wing-back Victorian-style chairs.
So, as you can see, IPX has a vested interest in this site.
Yes, I know all about IPX and its vested interests, Mr. Eilerson. But you haven't named a price.
The price is negotiable. What isn't is turning yourself in if you are indeed a fugitive.
I never fancied myself a martyr.
It's not martyrdom, it's due process.
I'm sure there are a lot of women from the Salem witch trials who would argue that point with you, Captain. They'd make you understand that to pacify an angry crowd, scapegoats must be found. Now that our telepath crisis is over, the right people must be punished, and history must be rewritten from the point of view of those who won. My interrogators would not find my arguments or evidence sufficient. They'd have my trials set for failure. I would be killed.
Even though it's disbanded, I didn't think the Corps was allowed to kill its own members. Wasn't that against Psi-Corps regulations?
Entering behind Gideon.
Yes, it was. Disbanded or not, murder, dissection, torture was all against Psi-Corps regulations. Right, Mr. Bester?
Teeps don't fight other teeps. When you are taught the Corps is your mother and father, each telepath becomes your brother or sister. It is never right to divide a family, or to kill them for any reason.
And what about killing normal humans? Why don't you tell them how many normals you killed while you were a Psi-Cop?
You see, Captain, these are the kind of insults I would be forced to hear if I were to turn myself in as you suggest. My track record is clean. But apparently someone somewhere is making sure that it isn't clean anymore. And as long as they aren't playing fair, well then, neither am I.
I don't mean to butt in, but we still need your help to unlock the door at the archaeological expedition. None of this has anything to do with why we're here.
He is met by a resentful but full silence.
So, will you help us?
Of course. But in exchange for help from you.
What help?
It's time for me to leave this planet for greener pastures. They tire of me here, and there is very little to keep me among such endearing people. There are bloodhounds out there looking for me lately. I've had reason to believe they're closing in. I need a way out. I want the Excalibur to take me to my next destination. No one is going to look for a war criminal there. I want off-planet, no questions, no conditions, and no snooping. Or we have no deal.
Gideon looks to his crew. There is mixed response. Eilerson looks like he has no problems with it. Dorina looks skeptical. Chambers and Matheson look obstinate.
Give us a chance to talk it over, because what you're asking isn't right.
I guess it depends on which side of the right you're on. How much do you value what's in that vault? How much do you need my help to get it? And how little time do you have left to find a cure before the body count starts?
Gideon stares at him for a moment, and then Bester leaves into an adjoining room. Exterior, dark ship. It looks like an Earth design, but sleek and silent, like the 2267 equivalent of a stealth bomber. Interior, dark ship. Inside, there's a helmeted pilot.
We've just received confirmation. Mr. Bester is on Terrace Colony. Preparing strike mission to recover him.
Good. I'll send word to Top Dog. Make your best speed and run silent on all channels.
Aye, sir.
Exterior, dark ships. Another ship pulls up alongside the first one, seemingly out of nowhere, though not technically out of nowhere, and the two ships glide off through the darkness of space. Interior, Bester's quarters. Gideon and Matheson and Chambers are all seated. Darina is standing, and Eilerson is pacing a bit. Bester is still in the back room.
Look, we need to make a decision. Personally, I don't care. I don't. I don't mean to offend you, but I'm putting the mission before everything else. What's in the vault might be the cure. Don't you think that's worth it?
The Rangers said this was a very good possibility. If not for a cure, then for the medical knowledge available within the site. It's not a sure deal, but it's too good an opportunity to pass up.
We can send for another telepath. It'll only delay us for a few days. We can't help this man.
How do you know he's guilty?
I read the charges against him.
Charges are one thing, guilt is another. How do you know?
I just do.
Were you ever around when he committed any crimes against normals?
No, of course not. That would make me an accessory.
Then how do you know that records aren't lying about him? What makes you so sure he's a bad person?
For a telepath, it's a gut instinct, only stronger. You won't get a clearer signal about someone unless you read their minds.
Interior, adjacent room. Bester is seated at his desk. A small pocket comm sitting on the table goes off with a red indicator light. He watches it with a pensive expression. It reads, "Warning. Pursuit team en route. Sighted in this sector."
I met him a long time ago. I signed up for an internship at the Psi Corps once. I didn't pass the exam, but I met him, and I knew then and there he wasn't quite whole. There was something cold and empty about that man.
Interior, Bester's quarters. Matheson finishes up.
There were always rumors about how he'd bend the rules or do things to hurt mundanes. Because of what I'd heard, I'd always stayed away from him.
So, based on a few rumors, you want us to forget his help?
I don't expect you to understand. I'm just asking you to trust me on this.
All right. I told you I trust you, John. So we'll wait and we'll get help. However you want to handle this, it's your people, so it's your call.
The door opens quietly from behind them. Bester comes out.
I've decided I'd like to help you all out. If not for your people, then for the thousands of telepaths that will die on Earth if we don't find a cure for the Drac Plague. More importantly, your incessant arguing is giving me a migraine. So I've come up with a proposition that will make the decision easy for you.
There's a pause as everyone steps away from him and looks with concern.
But we've already made our decision.
Then you've made the wrong one. You will take me with you. Did you think that I was going to let you argue all this time so that you could simply decide, no, let's turn him in and go about our business quietly. That's the right thing to do. Don't worry. I won't rewire your minds to a different decision. As I said, I am running out of time. My enemies are on the move to find me again. If you don't take me with you and I am captured, I have no qualms about naming Lieutenant Matheson as one of my co-conspirators during the telepath crisis. I assure you, anything I am found guilty of, torture, conspiracy, or murder, I will make absolutely certain he is implicated as well.
We close in on Gideon's reaction to this cold twist of the knife. Matheson looks like a crushed man, completely at the whim of this devastating, loathsome person. Fade out. End of Act 3. Act 4. Fade in. Interior archaeological site. They come through the doorway with Bester in the lead.
It will take a moment for me to prepare. Be aware that anything meant to distract me will only result in all of us suffering from massive brain trauma. Because when that lock and I come into contact with one another, the radius of affected beings will be much, much larger than it was before.
I think I'm beginning to understand what you mean by a bad gut feeling. Remind me never to doubt your instincts, Lieutenant.
Yes, sir.
Close up, Bester. Bester takes a moment to concentrate. We hear gears and mechanisms start to unlock deep within the vault. We see the same effect we did with Matheson earlier. Close up, door, locked. There are some sounds of depressurizations, and a bit of steam or fog comes rolling out of the door. It is once seamless, but it's now split in a jagged edge down the middle, making two doors sliding apart and open from each other. Interior archaeological site. Bester steps back, a bit woozy for only an instant. Eilerson peeks in. Chambers is right behind him. Interior vault. We see Eilerson walk inside carefully. Chambers right behind him with a scanner out, making sure it's safe. We pull back to reveal the inner chamber. It's empty. The walls are made from bedrock. They are cragged and irregularly cut. It looks natural, but not finished over. Push in on Eilerson's reaction. We hear running water.
This is it?
Looks like we went all this way for nothing.
You guys are always missing the point. I keep forgetting that your culture has come to rely on everything but nature.
Darina goes to the far end of the room where we see a waterfall, very small, like a trickle, cascading down the rocks. Where it falls against the rocks, we see they have turned into a beautiful emerald green and clear.
What do you mean?
There are other healing alternatives. My people, for example, stayed away from doctors. No offense. It wasn't customary to seek that kind of medical help. We preferred natural remedies instead. We had what you would consider herbalists. They knew the secrets of nature, the healing properties of the earth, fire, wind, and...
She lets the water run over her hand.
Water.
Darina looks at Chambers, who gets what she's saying.
Right. We can analyze this.
Chambers gets the container under the waterfall and fills it up. Darina bends down and gathers up some of the clear green rocks that have fallen to the base of the wall.
Do you think they're valuable?
I think they're probably a part of this place. A potential cure. We can't afford to overlook anything.
Interior archaeological site. Darina and Chambers walk out of the vault. Eilerson is still looking on the ground for anything of value.
Finished.
Behind them, the door starts closing. Interior vault. Eilerson has found something, a scroll case which was dug into the ground and covered by dust. He's digging it out when the door starts to close. Eilerson sees the door closing and he digs faster.
Eilerson, get over there!
I found something.
Can't you keep the door open?
No! It's closing because you got what you came for!
Interior vault. Eilerson gives one final yank to the scroll and it comes out of the ground. He launches himself toward the door. Close-up door. Eilerson comes sliding out of the door, narrowly avoiding being crushed.
What's that?
I don't know. I'm hoping it's instructions.
Darina and Chambers exchange excited smiles. Exterior archaeological site. A shuttle takes off. Interior shuttle as the pilot looks to Gideon.
We're getting a signal from the station. Governor wants to talk with you before you take all this stuff on board the Excalibur.
Everywhere you go, there's always a bureaucracy. All right, this shouldn't take long.
Interior space station, cargo bay. The group comes through. Bester is the last out of the shuttle. As the group comes out of the entrance, they're ambushed by 12 thugs. Most of the thugs have weapons out. A fight breaks out.
What the hell do you want?
We want the loot you came here for. We're not letting Earth Force scum take anything valuable off our planet.
We don't have anything. There was nothing in there.
Yeah, right. A lying Earth Force scum and its telepathic pals. I'm not buying it.
Gideon gets a solid punch on the guy, but is tackled from behind by another one holding a knife. Matheson, who has managed to duck out of most of the fighting, sees Gideon go down with the guy with the knife. He jumps into the middle of the fray.
Matt!
Matheson pounces on the guy with the knife. He wrenches the hand of the knife behind the guy's back. Another thug comes up to Matheson from behind. Matheson is engrossed in the one he's on, and the second thug goes to hit Matheson over the head with a stern-looking police club. We see the thug pull back for a strike, and then he is in massive pain. We see a shockwave effect from a mind blast here at the thug. He drops the club and grabs his head, screaming. He falls to the ground, dead. Directly in Matheson's eye line, after the man drops, we see Bester. Interior cargo bay. Matheson looks to everyone. They realize Bester saved Matheson's life. The other thugs see this, and without much delay, they haul off, not wanting to be another target for Bester's powers. Close up, Matheson. He realizes Bester just saved his life. Exterior, Excalibur. Later. The ship jumps into hyperspace. Interior, medbay. Chambers is here with Darina, and they're analyzing the stones in the spring water they found at the planet.
We'll know more in 48 hours. This thing cost my people back home a fortune, but we put every penny into it because when it scans, it leaves no stone unturned.
Great.
They sit in silence for a moment, watching the spring water swirl through several clear tubes, vials, tumblers, through different lights. The machine sounds like a CPU on a computer with a slight whirring noise as it works. Eilerson enters.
I've been working on the translation.
What's it say?
Quite interesting. We left because we no longer needed this sacred place. We had evolved in such a manner that our own bodies were timeless, formless, and perfect. We left our shells behind. We left this spring behind. We have gone to great lengths to protect it, for in protecting what is sacred, we know we preserve it. We do not know where it comes from or why it is so potent, only that it helps to prolong life and soothe the sick. If you have found it, you are worthy of its blessings. We leave it wholly unto you.
Eilerson looks up, rolling the scroll back up. Chambers and Darina get up. Darina moves to the door.
48 hours till we know what it does.
I think we already know what it's capable of.
I won't get my hopes up. I've been disappointed too many times so far. 48 hours.
Chambers starts to write down in her medical journal. Darina and Eilerson leave her alone to her thoughts. Interior flight deck. Bester is waiting for a shuttle. Matheson approaches.
Your shuttle is ready.
Tell me, what's it like in Earth Force?
It's everything I dreamed it would be. I know now that I was not very happy in Psycor. I am happy here.
You're happy, despite the discrimination, the distrust?
Actually, I'm more trusted here than I ever was in the Corps. My commanding officer, my team, they never wonder if I'm going to betray them. On Excalibur, I don't have to prove my loyalty. With the Corps, my loyalty was always tested, always questioned. The Corps was so paranoid.
We had to protect ourselves from people on the outside who didn't understand us, and people on the inside who refused to be a part of us.
I can't live like that.
What is the alternative? Living among mundanes who will never understand us? I have stared intolerance in the face for more years than you've been alive.
Things change. Why did you save my life back there?
Because you're a telepath. I became a psychop to protect the lives of all telepaths, even the ones who don't want protection.
But you're not a psychop anymore, and the Corps is disbanded.
I will always be a psychop. It's who I am. What I was conditioned to do, because it's the right thing to protect the family.
Is that why you murdered during the telepath crisis?
I did what was necessary. There were casualties on both sides of the war. The difference is, when you win the war, you're a hero. When you lose, you're a war criminal. I did things the current administration disapproves of because they are the heroes, and I am the war criminal. But if the tables were turned, I could easily accuse them of the same crimes. So, I will not turn myself in. I did what was right. They'll never prove I did anything else. In the end, everything I did was for my people.
I'd like to believe that. But if you're running, you must be guilty of something.
I remember being your age. Things seemed more fair then. I once had a mentor named Sandoval Bay. You may have heard of him. He never learned when to run and when to stand his ground. He was innocent, so he didn't run from the mundanes who killed him. He was so vulnerable and he never even realized it. No, John, I'm running from the mundanes, the wrong people with the wrong intentions toward telepaths. We can no longer understand each other because we are no longer the same beast.
Interior medbay. Chambers is here. Gideon enters.
Good news or bad news?
It's always either one or the other, isn't it? Sometimes I think I dole out more good news than bad, but in the end, our mission was fairly successful. This is the most potent pain reliever we've ever had. Doctors always struggle to make the suffering tolerable when they can't find a cure for it. Throughout history, patients who used to suffer from AIDS, cancer, and other diseases were in so much pain, and we could do very little to ease it. This will help people back home when the plague begins to break out, and it may even prolong lifespans up to 6 months by staving off some of the symptoms.
All in all, then, we did the right thing.
We did the right thing, but I'm not so sure what we're doing now is right.
We will follow through on our word and drop Mr. Bester off at his rendezvous point, even if keeping a promise is the only honorable thing we've done all day.
Exterior Excalibur. As it travels through hyperspace, we fade out. End of Act 4. Tag. Fade in, exterior Excalibur. It's stopped in hyperspace. Close up, flight deck and shuttle. A shuttle, simple, not much more than a life pod, thrusts out of the flight deck and sits in hyperspace. Interior Excalibur Bridge. Gideon sits in the captain's chair. Matheson comes up behind him, looking out at the view screen at the tiny, floating shuttle before their massive ship.
Bester's just going to sit there with 24 hours of life support.
That's what he said.
And if no one comes for him in 24 hours?
Then I guess he runs out of oxygen and dies.
Maybe it might be better to spare him the agony. Just put him out of his misery now with one of our forward guns.
Matheson is supposed to agree, given his former position. However, we close in on his face, hearing Bester's voice in his mind.
He was innocent, so he didn't run from the mundanes who killed him. He was so vulnerable, and he never even realized it.
Exterior shuttle, as it sits helpless like a dot before the Excalibur.
I'm running from the mundanes, the wrong people with the wrong intentions toward telepaths.
Interior Excalibur Bridge. Matheson looks at Gideon, who doesn't notice he's being observed.
We can no longer understand each other, because we are no longer the same beast.
Matheson shakes his head.
No, sir, we'd just be sinking to his level. One day, someone will catch him and put him on trial for his crimes. And he'll get what's due.
You're probably right. Take us away.
Aye, sir.
Exterior Excalibur. The Excalibur leaves the small shuttle alone in hyperspace. Exterior hyperspace. A pause. A mothership comes through the dense hyperspace veils. It's a Psychor mothership. The small shuttle moves slowly towards it. Interior mothership flight deck. A rogue Psychop is standing here, waiting for Mr. Bester. Mr. Bester comes from the shuttle off screen to meet up with him.
Mr. Bester, it's been 3 years since we last hooked up. We were starting to think you'd fallen off the rim.
Not yet. It is a little unnerving when a Psychor mothership comes looming down on one's tiny craft. But it helps to know that the remaining few death wagons are in good hands.
Thanks to you, Mr. Bester.
Nonsense. It was simple enough. EarthGov would never admit having to build offensive ships for the Psychor in the first place. It would look very bad.
And we have a weapon to strike back with.
When the time is right. Meanwhile, if EarthGov can't declare these ships exist, then they can't send out forces to find us. And that fact is the beginning of a very beautiful thing.
They walk off together. Exterior ships at space station. The dark ships have arrived at Tariff Station. Interior Bester's quarters. Pilot number 2 is here.
I checked out the station, his quarters, everything. He seems to be gone. I don't understand it. There are no records of any ships leaving here with him on it. Though the Excalibur was here, that's odd.
Intercut with interior dark ship.
Yeah, I heard that. They were investigating something down on the moon. Top Dog just wired in. He wants a full report.
Interior Bester's quarters.
You go right ahead. I hate telling him bad news. He gets really cranky.
Thanks. Computer, begin recording transmission to Mars Dome.
Interior dark ship. There is a beep.
This is Underdog to Top Dog. We arrived at the colony. Al Bester was not here. There are no records of him leaving the planet.
Interior office on Mars. We are close on a hand at the desk, turning off a desk link. We see Mars through the window in the background.
I'm sorry, Mr. Garibaldi. He got away again.
Fade out to theme. End of show.
Hey!
You guys able to actually
Yay!
hear the theme this time?
Just this once.
Yeah, that was fun. That was one of the better episodes, I think. Yeah, well, at least it would have been one of the better
I think it
episodes.
had the best cast.
Agree.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. We'll be back next week with a second script reading. We're going to do The End of the Line, which would have been the season 1 finale. So we'll see you then. But before we do, thanks to Jeremy Siegel, who normally writes our theme music. I have no idea if that's actually going to be in this episode because of our blatant theft of the Crusade theme, more than likely. But Jeremy's still
Who
great.
are you?
You should totally check out Jeremy's work at jeremysiegel42.bandcamp.com or in streaming services Nuclear Jaguar.
And of course, thank you to Angry Duck Time Machine on Instagram for our podcast artwork.
Oh, Ahren. Oh, we have handed you. Oh, this episode is a boulder and you are Sisyphus.
We
do
gave you
not
a
envy
buffet
you.
of bullshit.
Thanks so much for wading your way through this one and putting it together for everyone. Appreciate it. Thank
It's going
you.
to be great. Yeah, thank you, the listener, for being here with us. I hope this was as enjoyable for you as it was for us. I wish you could see us. We're all having a fantastic time here. It was a hoot. If you want to join the conversation, please feel free to email us at whoareyoub5@gmail.com or come join us in the Discord and you can chat with all of us here.
All right, we'll see you next week, Internet.
Bye.